Do you want to know which comic has gone up 3,674%? Massive, massive gains. For the last couple of years, I've been telling you guys to get into late silver, early bronze DC horror comic books. And yes, you can even sprinkle in some Marvel Silver Age, Bronze Age horror as well. These comics are going through the roof every single time. I'm seeing records breaking non-stop. And those comic book boom highs, they're in the past. Far, far down below. These comics keep on beating those prices again, over and over and over. It just graphs just look like this year after year, year after year. So I'm going to show you just some samples of some books that have broken records, gone on to new heights, and keep on going up time and time again. Now, there's nothing special about these books. It's not like there's some first appearance or origin or anything like that. No, these are just very sought after books. And especially when you get in high grade, they can go up for a ton. So let's start with some House of Secrets. House of Secrets number 81. A 9.2 recently sold for $2,600. The last time it sold was 2016 for $675. That is up 291%. Or how about House of Secrets number 94? A 9.6 recently sold for $1,000. The last time it sold was in 2015 for $256. That is up also around 290%. We also got House of Secrets 100 in a 9.8 selling for $2,700. The last one to sell is 2017 for $970. That is up 178%. And then we got the big one on here. House of Secrets number 123 in a 9.2 recently sold for $1,170. The last time it sold was 2013 for $31, and it's up 3,670%. Now, there's nothing really special about these books, but people love these books, especially in high grade. They just seem pretty hard to find. Now, if you have a Bernie Wrightson or a Neil Adams, those are the ones you have to go at. I'm just picking some of them. There are so many on this list because Bernie Wrightson did a ton, same with Neil Adams. You can also get some Nick Cardy. It's just, you can pretty much get almost any artist as long as it's kind of a cool looking cover or has some kind of ghoul monster on it or a skull. Skulls always do very well. Here's some more. House of Mystery, 186 in a 9.6, recently sold for $1,500. The last one to sell was 2018 for $542. That is up 177%. House of Mystery 195, recently sold in a 9.8 for almost $2,000. The last one to sell was back in 2023, so not too long ago, for $1,800. That's up 10%. Or how about a House of Mystery 197, a 9.8 recently sold for almost $2,000. The last one to sell was 2024, so last year, and it sold for $1,650. That is up 18%. Or House of Mystery 200. Last one in a 9.8 sold for $1,200. Before that was 2019 for $360. That is up 233%. So why are these selling so well? Well, I think it's because they're more rare than other DC comics around the same era. So when House of Secrets, House of Mystery first came out, their circulation, their print run, was roughly about 200,000 copies per issue. Started going up a little bit, especially around the early 60s when they started having a little bit of superheroes in there, but then it started going down. So DC decided to cut, instead of doing monthly issues, one per month, they did 8 issues per year. So it was like almost every other month or every month and a half, you would get a new issue. By the late 60s, early 70s, right when these started becoming more horror and less sci-fi, they switched over to doing monthly, and sales dropped significantly down to about 100,000 for a print run. That was their circulation. Now, doesn't mean that every single 100,000, those were all bought up by customers. They could have been returned to the distributor. And at the time, horror, although maybe popular now, wasn't so popular back then. So when you have a legendary artist like Bernie Wrightson doing horror stuff, which is what he's good at, it just got underappreciated. But during this time, Marvel and DC wanted to expand. They wanted to push out more magazines, more comic book series. So they definitely branched off into even more horror elements, because even if you're only selling 100,000 copies, which may not be something like to a Spider-Man that's selling hundreds and hundreds of thousands of copies, it's still enough. So they did expand. We got something like Witching Hour. Witching Hour number 1 in a 9.8 recently sold for $8,000. Back in 2021, at the height of the comic book boom, it was only selling for $3,400. That is an increase of 135% from 2021, the height of the comic boom. It was June, height to now, it went up over double. Then you got witching hour number 3, 9.8, selling for almost $2,000. The last one to sell was 2011 for $1,100, up 73%. How about witching hour number 5? And a 9.6, you got selling for about $960. Before that, in 2020, it was selling for $210. That's it, up 357%. Witching hour 13, our 9.8 recently sold for $1,100. Back in 2018, the last sale was $850, up 29%. Witching hour 41, a 9.8 recently sold for $850. Last one was sold 2023, so not too long ago, sold for $540, up 57% in just a few short years. Witching hour 80 sold for $600 in a 9.8. The last one to sell was early, the beginning of this year in 2025 for $305, up 97%. Now, if you've been watching this channel long enough, you know that I've been talking about these. I put this on, like, I think second or third on my comics you should invest in 2025. I put it, I think, on my list back in 2024, so that I do those at the beginning of every year. And I put these on many different lists in between them, talking about like, hey, these are really good books. You should get into them, especially in high grade. They're pretty rare, hard to come by. And there's a good amount of people that want these books, especially now that horror's become more and more popular than it was back in the day. And so it's definitely found its way into collectors that really want these books. I mean, they're really good art. The covers are really spectacular. And it's not like a series that you have to follow where it's just like, you know, like Superman, you know, every issue continues from the last. They're just one-off stories with really cool covers by really good artists that are appreciated more today than they were back then. Even Weird War Tales, number 52, a 9.8 recently sold for $336. In 2016, the last one to sell, $180, up 87%. Also made another series called Ghost around the same time as they did Witching Hour. Ghost number 1 and a 9.6 recently sold for about $1,500. Early the beginning of this year, it was selling for $1,200. That is up 23% in about 7 months. Got Ghost number 11 and a 9.6 recently sold for $355. In 2020, it was selling for $140. That is up 154%. Ghost number 35 and a 9.6 recently sold for $400. In 2023, it was selling for $237. That is up 69%. And then, of course, you got this great Bernie Wrightson's cover with a jack-o'-lantern. Secrets of Haunted House number 5. This was a very long series, but in a 9.0, and this book has been in all grade ranges. In a 9.0, it recently sold for $600 in 2024. And I even put it on many, this specific book, I put on many lists. I was like, you got to get this book. In 2024, it's selling for $350. That is up 68% in what, a year and a half? So if you can find yourself a Bernie Wrightson, pretty much those are good. Those are good to have. A lot of these are high grade, like 9.8s, 9.6, 9.4s. You can also get like 8.0s, 8.5s, 9.0s, things like that. I wouldn't probably go all the way down to 4.0, 2.0, unless you're trying to complete a run or you just want the book. But the higher end grades are the ones that seem to command the most value and probably have the most upside. Now, Marvel tried to get in onto this horror thing, but it didn't do very well. Most of the series that they did come out with didn't last very long, weren't that good. After, maybe 10 or 12 issues, they kind of canceled it. So a lot of the horror stuff that Marvel tried to do in the late Silver, early Bronze just didn't really pan out. I think that mostly had to do with probably they didn't have like a Bernie Wrightson or a Neil Adams doing the art like they did on these books. And it just so happened that as time went on, people really appreciate Wrightson and Neil Adams a whole lot more than most of the artists that did the horror books over at Marvel, and they become like a staple. Like Wrightson is just, when it comes to horror, like he's pretty much one of the main people, the top artists. So, but even though they didn't have like a good artist, some of their stuff still sells pretty well because again, they probably didn't have a very high print run, and just finding them in good, decent shape and high grade is probably pretty hard to do. So when they do come up, people really want them. So you got like a Vault of Evil number 1 and a 9.8 recently sold for about $2,200. The last one to sell is 2011, so a long time ago, for $625, $256. Vault of Horror 14 and a 9.6 recently sold for $162. In 2021, at the height, $26, up 523%. You also got Chamber of Chills. There's a bunch of different ones. Number 8, $800 and a 9.8 in 2013. It was selling for $144, up 456%. And then Chamber of Chills 19, 98 Reasons Sold for $1,100. Back in 2020, it was selling for $270, up 307%. Now, these are just some of the issues I was picking. Just going through and I looked at the whole list and I was like, how about this one, just like that. And most of these have been going up nonstop. There are some issues that maybe have gone down a little bit, but only in the course of like a year or something like that. Oh, it had a record sale in like 2024, and then this year it sold for a little less. But if you look at the long history of it, it's always up, always up. And I've been telling people not to sleep on these books because they are fantastic and they are great, and people seem to really like them. And they just keep on going up and up and up. Now, obviously, they're not going to keep on going up forever. You can't expect you buy it now and then 5 years from now, it's up another 3,000%. But if you were listening to my advice that I said many, many times, many years ago, then you're probably doing pretty good. All right, let me know what you think of these horror books in the comments below, and have a great day.